Hello, everybody. My name is Coulter Scott. This is my EDL 851 case study. The title of it is Teacher Reacts Negatively to Her Personal Evaluation. In this situation, I will be acting as principal. Here are some of the quick facts of it. Principal is completing evaluations of staff. Overall, I believe we have a pretty good staff. We have one staff member that really knows the content and is intelligent, but really shows a lack of engagement and kind of commitment and motivation to the students. I have follow-up meetings with Mrs. Stevens about the evaluation, about things that can be worked on. She is not receptive to what is had to say. Within this, if Ms. Stevens has a positive recommendation for the following year, she has tenure. Before finalizing the evaluation form, I go back in and do one more evaluation of the classroom. In the end, I find that I do not want to renew her for the following school year. And when we have the follow-up meeting after that, she shows her disgust on my decision. Other facts of this story is Mrs. Stevens involved, I, the principal, students. When did this occur? It happens throughout the school year of multiple observations through the educational year. Where did it occur? It occurred in one of Mrs. Stevens' classrooms, and then within a conference room or my office. Legal and ethical issues. I'm going to start with ethical issues. Was there enough support provided to Mrs. Stevens by her supervisor, me, that gave her the opportunity to learn? Is there a personal opinion involved with observations and decision making? Does my opinion come into play in this? Was feedback given in an actionable manner? So she kind of understood fully what was going on. Legally, the tools for the evaluation are provided by the school and the district, which follow the state and federal guidelines. Documentation of my observations and meetings could be some of action, but overall, no legal issues come along with the evaluation process. With the threat at the end, there could by Mrs. Stevens, there could be for after the non-renewal. Summary of this case study is, with teacher evaluations deadline approaching, the principal, after several classroom observation, has seen Mrs. Stevens is struggling engaging students, shows no willingness to change, and has been hostile when subject is discussed. At that point, I, as principal, decided to non-renew her contract for the following school year. Some of the missing facts are her supervisor. Who's her supervisor, and do we know anything from her? Does she have any peer mentors that we may need to discuss with? Can we discuss with the students about maybe why they're not being engaged and why they're not being involved within the classroom? The place, we don't know what school. We may not know exactly what grade level this is, and we don't know the demographics of the educational setting. The program, we don't know exactly what is the schools and districts evaluation process. How many times did and how long was Ms. Stevens observed? This one's the next one, but not necessary maybe, but were she observed at the same time every time, or was there different times that we've noticed this struggling? Are there supports in place that supported the school and Mrs. Stevens' professional growth and capacity? Were those things in place for her to be able and willing to learn more about how to become a better teacher? Review of the facts here. Mrs. Stevens has been found to be irritable, hostile to suggestions, and difficult to communicate with, and reacts very defensively. Within this, Ms. Stevens' reputation and career is at risk. She's been in teaching for a long time if she's about to reach tenure status. So there could be a big check mark next to her name with this. As principal, I have to make a decision that is fair, ethical, and supportive. My decision also has to be based on how to improve systems and staff supervision, evaluation, support, and professional learning. I have to think about all of that when I'm making a decision. Other things could be that other staff and cohorts may think that I or others may not have done the right thing and supported Mrs. Stevens enough. We could be in the wrong. It is my responsibility overall, though, to promote school improvement and student success. And within this is what I really try to strive on. The future of the student's learning will be affected if she stays or she doesn't stay. So either way, we're going to have to make some adjustments. Moving on, how do we recover from this? How do we follow through on this? I have 4 options here. Option 1, take no action, as in go ahead and finish the evaluation and send it to the superintendents. Take the chances that Mrs. Stevens may take the school or the district to court. Option 2, take another look at Mrs. Stevens' evaluation and observation process, the number evaluation, the follow-ups, and the results. Were there enough professional learning opportunities for her to learn? Option 3, create an improvement plan. Provide the information over what might be needed to be learned, follow up, observe, document, and progress. Option 4, keep Mrs. Stevens. Because of the threat of the court, she is renewed, but results of the evaluation stays the same. Pros and cons to these options. Option 1 of take no action, as in go ahead and continue with the plan to non-renew. The pro would be we'd now be able to hire a new position. This could be the best for the student success and well-being. Con, we'll have to hire somebody, but also that we're going to chance that Miss Stevens takes us to court. She could act negative, impact the school in other ways in the community. Staff may think negatively on the decisions that I have made. Option 2, take another look. Go ahead and look through all the steps that we followed in the observation process. Could we go through and still have the right to say that we're good and could possibly fend off the court decision? Con, this could be very timely. It could take a long time to go through. It may not leave enough time to give notice to Mrs. Stevens of the results and how to keep going along through. The next option 3 would be create an improvement plan. Mrs. Stevens is still a teacher at the school. There's the pro. For her, may not be for the school. She will be given the chance to be better at her craft. Relationship may improve between the two of us. The con is she would be probably granted tenure. She may not improve over what we set up. You'd have to create a plan, and this could be over a couple of years. And what really comes into play is that tenure factor is that could really hurt us in the long run. Like I said, she may not actually improve, and everything still may decline overall. Option 4, the pro is that if we keep her, we don't have to go into legal action. We'll not have to find a new teacher. Con, she'll be granted tenure, and we won't be able to really support, and if she doesn't change, non-renew her for the next year. Also, if we let her stay, I personally may not be seen as a leader if I go against my beliefs and morals. Others may see it as an opportunity to decline their practices as well. Student success could be at an all-time low if we pick this one. Best option would be the first one. Do not renew Mrs. Stevens for the following school year. Mrs. Stevens has shown and discussed that her students' class structure are the reason for bad observations. So she's blaming the students for everything and not anything that she has done. In the follow-up meetings, her display of attitude and unwillingness to learn or take advice is a big factor in part of my decision. This option will be the best overall for student and staff well-being, success, and morale. If observations, follow-ups, and professional development is documented correctly, then the school should not be concerned for a threat of court or lawsuit. I do believe if tenure was really not into play and we were really trying to give somebody a chance, that creating of an improvement plan would be a good option. But with the whole tenure thing, it kind of, depending on where you are, can bring a lot of different other elements into play within that improvement plan and the documents that would have to be done within that. So overall, option 1 would be the best. If we were able to maybe have another year and that tenure was not on the table, I think maybe on need, that option 3 would be a solid choice on creating an improvement plan. Implementation of this plan is have another meeting with Mrs. Stevens to discuss the findings. and go ahead and discuss with her that why they're non-renewing the contract, send the evaluation on to the superintendent, allow them to review the documentation, and let the school board do the final steps. If Ms. Stevens would hold up the threat of court, I would be in contact with the superintendent, school board, and district council. Make sure to go over the policies of the evaluation process and all documentation. Then I would follow up the final result of Ms. Stevens and the contract if we needed to go through that. Finally, section 10 was the standard statements. This case study obviously went through the whole observation and evaluation process, made us think about each of the sections, touch based on engaging with staff and collaboration on support, develop and evaluate. All of this was to promote current self and future staff and students' well-being. Relevant. Working on this case study is very relevant to my learning. It gave a quick snapshot of the situation that I may come across with evaluating a staff member that I am in charge of. Being able to read through and come up with options helped me better understand the process that will need to be thought out and processed and then been conducted. Playing the role of the principal was a simple way for me to be responsive and responsible of the situation, be a leader, improve my decision-making skills, and build on my professional capacity. Overall, my reflection of completing this module, I was able to put myself in a situation that is very common in the educational system. By being able to go step by step and going through everything, I'd be able to think about how the evaluation process works and it's conducted while coming up with options that would be best fit the situation. Within this, I was also able to connect with my current administration to stress thoughts on how to handle the scenario. It was good to hear when talking to them that I was on the right path and that they were able to exchange ideas, and we went in a little bit further into detail about what could happen and how we handle the situation. Overall, I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch my presentation, and have a good one. Bye.